Welcome to Beyond, Rebirth and Rise, a podcast for those who feel the old story no longer fits and are ready to live from their true essence. I'm Leonie Joanne Brown, author, speaker, mentor, and field guide. I work in the unseen dimensions of leadership where body, soul, and truth meet, and where the next version of you is already waiting. In these episodes, we explore leadership that doesn't come from the mind, but from presence. We speak about womb wisdom, energy, systemic fieldwork, ritual, healing beyond linear time, and the courage to lead your life from who you truly are. Because when truth enters, leadership can arise. And when the soul speaks, your work and the world around you begins to change. If something in these words touches you, I invite you to do more than just listen. Share the podcast, explore the free tools in the description, and step into the movement of Beyond, Rebirth and Rise. Beyond inspiration. Beyond motivation. Dr. Carol Talbot is a live transformation. Most speakers talk. Dr. Carol activates. She is the founder and creator of the Possibility Hub. She holds a PhD in quantum morphogenetic science. She did groundbreaking research in bioregenesis of DNA, in source feeding, and in multidimensional intelligence. And she has decades of experience guiding profound transformation. From corporate teams to world leaders, from entrepreneurs to seekers of expansion, you will leave this episode with a whole new perspective. She blew my mind, and I hope she'll blow yours too. And I invite you to feel this field of transformation while listening. And Carol, welcome.
Thank you.
You are quite an impressive leader in the evolution of multidimensional intelligence. And I'm honestly so excited to have you here with me in this online studio. And before we go into the vastness of the subjects we're going to talk about, who are you today in this moment, beyond the titles, beyond everything you stand for?
Who am I?
Mhm.
Of course, I'm a multidimensional field of consciousness and intelligence is who and what I am. And I feel that that question, every time you would answer it, always changes because we are evolving. We are always in a state of growth, or rather, we're either growing or dying, and I know which side of the equation I'd like to be on. So that's a beautiful question because to me, I love the evolution, the discovery that there's always more.
Hmm. And let's start by what you have given me the most and for which I am super thankful. And this is it's quite simple saying these two words, but the feeling behind it, it's so powerful. I'm super thankful for letting me see beyond, seeing possibilities. And your website states possibility thinking is just one of the crucial choices you can make today to cultivate greater impact tomorrow. What does that actually mean? And what happens in our field when we shift into possibility? I could tell you as well because you make me feel it. but I'd like you to answer the question, of course.
Okay, well, I guess it goes back to a question that's driven me my whole life. I've always been fascinated by the masters, the superhumans, the gurus, who demonstrate all sorts of phenomena, whether it's walking on water, manifesting feasts and banquets out of thin air, Often they've demonstrated going without the need for physical nourishment for extended periods of time, nourishing themselves on prana, teleportation, all of those things. And my question has always been, if they can do it, why can't I? And so that question has driven me towards all the unusual teachers, mentors, masters, experiences that I've been through myself. I mean, if I go back about 8, 9 years, I even went on a month-long program in the US to learn to walk on water. Did I
Really?
succeed? No, I sank every time. But as you know, an area that I have succeeded in is I'm a master firewalk instructor. So, probably for 2 decades now, I've run firewalking experiences to teach people to walk across burning hot coals. Now, why? Do we need more firewalkers in the world? Well, what this teaches us is that what we've been taught and told is not necessarily true. So when people walk across those burning hot coals completely unharmed, it begs the question, if I can do that, what else can I do in my life? And that is what starts opening the door to possibility, to start questioning the narrative, the script that we've been given, because after all, from the moment we're born, we're given a name, placed into a religion, handed a script of beliefs, sent to school, taught a history that may or may not be true. And so, we're taught to conform, because if we don't conform, we're ostracized and classed or classified as the dunce of the class. And again, it instills that we want to win, we want to belong. So often we're not taught to push to the extreme to question the narratives. I mean, what is it about the masters that enable them to do those kind of phenomena? Is it that they live in a different bandwidth of reality, the multidimensional reality? Or is it that their DNA is refined to such a point that allows for such phenomena? So these are some of the questions that have driven me, which is the reason that I called that website the Possibility Hub. And I always say it's about taking people beyond the boundary of who you believe yourself to be and opening to new possibilities. So if you have a glass or a bottle and water is contained in the bottle, take the bottle away and it becomes part of everything. And society has limited us and told us to play small. I'm saying open up to new possibilities. It's our growth, our evolution, our heritage to be more than we think we can be.
Thank you. You remind me so much of who I was as a child. I I asked exactly the same question. Like, oh, if so and so can do this, so can I. Why can't I? But yes, it might be a question of a child, but it has so much power if you come to think of it. Why can't I? And it
Well, if,
makes you think.
if I think about that question, and I've written quite a number of books now. I've just published my fourth book and second in this year. But my first book, I never dreamt that I could write a book, Leonie. I never dreamt of it. But here's the thing. Somebody I knew wrote a book. And I thought, gosh, if they can do it, maybe I can too. And so that possibility question actually invites you to motivate yourself to go just that little step beyond, and then another step, and then another step. And I think there's that time when we all look back at ourselves maybe 1 year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. And would we
Mm.
ever have dreamt we'd be doing what we're doing now? Absolutely not. But isn't that the joy also of life, to explore the buffet that we've been presented with? And maybe if you treat it like a buffet, where we tend to go for what we normally like, but go for, let's sample and taste something a little bit different. It reminds me, when people go to a restaurant, they say there's a mystery dish of the day, and people say, "Well, what's in it?" And it's like, well, if we tell you, it won't be a mystery. So most people don't have that. They go for what they know. And I feel that life offers us beautiful opportunities to sample something else. And in some ways, I never knew what I wanted to do when I was, at that age when you decide what you're going to study at university or college. And maybe that was a good thing. I always envied people who knew they wanted to be a, doctor, lawyer, nurse, whatever. I never did. But what it did mean was that I used to look around and think, oh, that looks exciting. I'll give advertising and marketing a go. Oh, recruitment. Let me give that a go. So I went into all sorts of different professions, didn't stay in any of them very long because I love learning. Once I've learned, then it's time to sort of move on. And this is where you've probably found being in the personal development arena, the learning and development arena, there's always something new to learn. It's always motivating, and you're always having your edges pushed, because if we're going to stand in front of an audience and encourage them to transform, to shift, to change, to do that
Mm.
authentically without continually pushing our own boundaries and barriers and possibilities, that to me wouldn't be right. So there's always more.
There's always more. And could I share you a little secret?
Please do.
I'll go I'll go back. I need to go back to childhood for that. But when I was a child, I could not imagine myself working. With the best will of the world, I could not imagine that.
Were you
And I
flying?
remember what?
Were you flying instead?
No, it's just that other kids, they knew what they wanted to be, like a nurse or a fireman or the
Exactly.
typical things. And I was like, "No, I cannot imagine myself in nothing." So and for a while, it caused a kind of distress because I was like, "Why can't I imagine myself in a certain profession?" And then I started saying what other kids would say. And but in reality, it was never inside my own wish. And it's only in later years that I started to discover exactly what you say. You end up in the professional field of development, of inner work, of research, and then it was like a homecoming to me as well. Because yes, you evolve. There's always something new to discover. And it was when I started to really focus on the things that I am interested in, that I want to evolve in, that I started to realize, but being who I am is my job. Being who I am is my job. That's what I have to do here. And the rest is just is form, is yeah.
And there's such a liberation when you allow yourself to be truly you. And again, from society asking us to conform, placing us in a sort of boundary conditions. This is who you are. These are your beliefs. This is, the way it is. When you do step out, and when you get to that stage, I don't know when it happens, when you really don't care what anybody else says or thinks, there's such a liberation and freedom of being who you truly are. And it doesn't
Mm.
matter if everybody likes you, because you know that you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But it's like when you're living authentically, or when you're truly who you are, that frequency is infectious, and it attracts your tribe. It attracts, who you're meant to be surrounded with.
Exactly, exactly. And you told us that you are the author of 4 books. And on your website, I was reading into something that really resonated because the same thing almost happened to me. a few times. And I'm going to read you a sentence and ask you about something. Let's see how I can ask this without giving it away. About what happened before the birth of your second book. I was reading, creativity is a living current that flows through us all, though it expresses differently for each of us. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper, sometimes as a wild firestorm. Sometimes it takes the shape of a book, a business, a song, a new way of being. Whatever form it takes, it's life itself seeking expression through you. When I was reading this, I was reading myself.
Well, if you think about it, where this moves into the realm of multidimensional intelligence, because we are living in a sort of a playground, an invisible internet of consciousness. And one of the metaphors I like to share is, if you have a Netflix account or Amazon account, you have to, set it up, you have a password. And then if you want to watch what's streaming on that channel, you have to log in. And then you can watch what's available on that channel. But if there's other movies and shows you want to watch on another platform, then you have to set up another account, another password, and log in. Now, if you take that metaphor and instead of entertainment, you look at it as creativity, ideas, innovation, then this is the invisible internet that we're connected to all the time. And most people get flashes of it. So they may think of somebody and that person calls, or they get that flash of inspiration. But the fact is, it's sporadic. And for most of them, they feel that their life is buffering, it's just going round in a circle. So this is where, through multidimensional intelligence, it's like knowing the password, knowing how to upgrade from basic Wi-Fi connection to the super internet, that you're always connected all the time. And those ideas, that creativity is not, it is one like a person, it's waiting to meet you. And you only have to meet it so far, and then it comes and meets you as well, and the two come together, which is the beauty when you start living in different frequencies. I think, again, I like to use lots of metaphors here, but we're playing in a playground of frequency, of consciousness, and you emit a certain frequency. And because of that frequency, it's like a playground that attracts certain people, certain situations, certain problems, certain traumas, dramas. If you either expand that playground or shift to a different playground where you're operating from different frequencies, then different people, different experiences, different ideas come in. And so the drama, the trauma, the upsets that were that playground can no longer happen in this playground, in this frequency. It's like becomes the frequency of and playground of creativity. And I think we were talking just before we went on air for this show about we've both recently had the experience of not being able to sleep. And that's actually how multidimensional intelligence, the last book, came to me. Uh, the idea had been planted through a discussion with a friend. I couldn't sleep, and I dislike, tossing and turning and everything and trying to sleep when you can't. I got up and I mapped out the whole book in that night, and I wrote the first draft during the month of March, which is Ramadan in this part of the world. And just recently, you shared with me that you had a lovely kind of like creativity came to play with you, and you wanted to play with it. The same with me. I needed to be up at 3:30 in the morning, went to bed early, but creativity, she had some different ideas, and I wouldn't have dismissed her for the world because it's so exciting, it's exhilarating. It's like coming across a playground and toy boxes and new toys to play with that are just, it's such a gift. And this is when you start playing in different fields of reality.
Hmm. Thank you for the image of the playgrounds, because when I tune into those words, I already feel the joy of 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 being there, of shifting into different frequencies. And for the listeners, Carol, that are not so familiar with these terms, maybe it's a good idea just to talk a bit about what is multidimensional intelligence, because we're using the word, but um, it might need a bit of explanation for some.
Okay. So it's, again, I go back to the fact that we all have a backstory, whether it was good, bad, or ugly, our childhood. And now is the time to start being the architect of a different timeline, of a different reality, and live in different bands of reality, and acknowledging that we are more than this physical form. And we are above and beyond the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body. That there are portions of our consciousness stationed at different levels of identity, from the soul level, the oversoul, the avatar, the rishi, the buddha, all the way back up to source. It's also about understanding our multidimensional anatomy. Because most people think our DNA is to do with our skin color or eye color. I'm not going to say hair color, because most of us have hair color from a bottle, as do I. But you get the idea. But actually, our DNA is multidimensional. But then, and it's kind of like a processor of consciousness. So here's
Mm.
another metaphor to explain this. If you have a film strip, when in a camera, when light hits the film strip, it projects what's on the film strip onto an external screen, right? And you watch
Mhm.
the movie. But if there's scratches and glitches on that film strip, then what appears on the screen is going to be glitchy. And so it is with our DNA. If there's distortions in our DNA, and there are, because of the toxins, particularly in our food, water supply, air, and our conditioning and programming, that means when consciousness hits our DNA, what gets projected as our outer reality holds distortions in it. So
Oh, what a
multidimensional
beautiful
intelligence
metaphor.
and bioregenesis is about tidying up your DNA, which means you have a cleaner connection to who you really are. Because it's estimated that 90% of the stream of consciousness that should be available to us is switched off. It's like on a dimmer switch, a faint glow. But can you see, if you start turning up that dimmer switch, you have more awareness. You begin to remember who you truly are, because we've forgotten our true cosmic history. We've forgotten our multidimensional anatomy. And then we've also forgotten our senses. We limit our senses to the main five: see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. Whereas, there's our intuition, which of course most people ignore. And then there's the higher senses, which is where the masters, the gurus, the superhumans come in, because they're more tuned up and turned on to those higher senses. So as you clean up your system, either through um, frequency attunement, tidying up your DNA, then this is when literally possibilities open. The vastness of who we are uh, comes online. And we realize that instead of being victims of circumstance, being the effect side of the equation, we become the architects of reality. We
Mm.
realize that we can tap into other probabilities, other possibilities, other timelines, and bring that back to utilize now. So it truly begins to open the door above and beyond IQ, EQ, um, Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences, and even, of course, beyond artificial intelligence. So this is multidimensional intelligence. And to me, I feel passionate about leading this evolution because I do feel it's the next paradigm for human evolution rather than, being lost in AI or what's happening in the world or technology, remembering our true brilliance, that masters and the gurus showed us what's possible. And now it's our time to remember.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Especially because it brings me to something that you wrote. And when I read it, I was like, this is so true. And it's so needed to stand up and take action. And I don't remember the exact words, but it had to do with the world now. And often we think of our world as the world as it is now. But in fact, the world as it is now is becoming more and more and more chaotic. And the world as it is going to be will not be anymore the world that we know today. And it's going very, 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 very fast. And I'm hearing that in this opening up to multidimensional intelligence, I'm hearing a way to deal with this chaos.
This is coming into coherence and alignment, the remembrance of who you are and how you play and impact and influence others in the world. So you mentioned leadership and a different kind of leadership. A leadership and a leader who can walk into a room and shift the energy of the room by their presence, who can read the energy of the room. So these are more subtle senses, but actually all organisms read energy. Just as human beings, we've got a little bit lazy. But most of us know that when we walk into a place or we meet someone, we go, ooh, that's a bit off, or gosh, I really felt, kind of like a resonance with that person. So this is what I mean by developing these more subtle senses and not only being able to utilize them, but to be able to impact and influence and be in that space and place of total stillness, silence, and stasis, rather than I need to go here, 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 running everywhere, and that chaos that so many people are in, but to come back into alignment. I'm reminded of one of the mentors I worked with, and when his skills came online, or his abilities, his extra senses came online, he had the ability, to see what was going on with somebody, if they were ill, if there were distortions at a cellular level. And of course, because he was so excited with this new gift, he'd often go up to perfect strangers and say, oh, hey, there's a problem with your liver or your kidneys. Now, you can imagine a stranger going up and saying something like that. You kind of turn around and go, who the hell are you to say that? So he didn't get a great response. And so what he learned, and this is something that we can all learn, that maybe we can't verbalize to people, but he learned that through his energy, if he sensed something, he could communicate to that person, maybe have a check on your liver or your kidneys. Now, he will never know if that person caught that thought or caught that energy. But it's a way to start thinking about how we make a difference in the world. And it doesn't have to be through, goodness knows, millions and millions of followers on Instagram. It doesn't have to be online or on big platforms. That in other ways, we can make much more powerful and subtle changes that are actually more accepted often than somebody on a stage shouting and telling you, do this, do that. And we're very much in a sort of followership model of the world, in that people are looking for other people for the answer. They're looking for their guru. They're looking to follow this person, that teacher. And I remember a couple of months ago, I saw a post and it said, "Oh, I'm doing this program for the 20th time." It's the same program 20 times. My first thought was, didn't you get it the first time? And is that really learning, or is that an addiction, Leonie?
Mm.
I've been blessed with the teachers and mentors that I've had, but usually after a period of time, it's time to move on. And I don't have any disrespect or nothing's happened. It's just my own evolution is calling for something bigger and bolder or different. So to me, this is the self-work that we do for ourselves, such that we can use our voice in a way that has resonance, that maybe calms people down, that we can use our
Mm.
energy field, that people in our presence feel a difference, even if we've not even said one word. And to me, this is what we need to embody and who we need to be: the seer, the tuner, the transmitter, the navigator, and the architect. These are the archetypes that I talk about in my latest book. And it's not about being one or the other. It's not a quiz and, oh, I'm this type, I'm that type. It's
Right.
about how do you embody more of who you are to make a bigger impact and influence in the world. And that doesn't always have to be through the one who shouts the loudest. It can sometimes
This res-
be in those very subtle ways.
yes, thank you. Sorry for disturbing you. But this resonated quite a lot, especially when you use the word embodiment. It's so important to refrain from structure, another program, another explanation, another um, another form that just activates the mind to understand things. Um, it's so important that we start to feeling.
Truth doesn't lie. Truth has a resonance. So, it's if people listen to the sound of my voice, there's a resonance,
Mm,
and it'll either resonate with them or it won't. It's
exactly.
so we've forgotten. I hear so many people, and I'm sure you do. It's like, I knew I was wrong, but I did it anyway. That we forget to learn to, something's off about this, and to actually take
Mm,
action. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to take action. Um, Yet we know when we do. There was something I had to write the other day, an email to someone, and I was feeling very uncomfortable about it, and I knew it had to be done. And there was a lovely sense of relief because I did know it was needed to be done, and it was kind of almost clogging up my energy field. It was clogging up my
mm,
mind. So sometimes we need to listen, and it's like, it's the right thing. This is your truth.
mm. And that's a very important one, to to know your truth and to be with it and to embody it.
Yes.
For the listener, what could be what are the most important um, steps or step to take if you want to start shifting towards this different playground?
That's where one of the book is one thing, and the book is coded and an activation in its own right. But it's not
Mm,
just a book. Multidimensional intelligence has become a whole field of tools and technologies. And one of the other first things that came online for me was the ability to do multidimensional field scans, which I know you have experienced. How phenomenal.
absolutely.
And look, I don't say they're phenomenal to sort of beat my own drum. because they wow me. And I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm like a child in a new playground. They've completely blown me away. This ability to, I always wanted to be clairvoyant, to see things, hear things, and I went on so many courses and things, and it never happened for me. And now I know the reason why. I mean, when friends used to say, "Did you see that, Carol? Could you feel that?" I'd go, "No." But what has now come on stream for me is beyond clairvoyance, beyond clairaudience, because even with those, they have to be translated through your own set of filters. So the multidimensional field scans mirror that which is in your multidimensional field. And it usually does it from 15, 16 different areas, which could be your energy signature and vibration, your purpose and mission, the 12 chakras, which are open, which are not, DNA strands, which are open, which are flickering, which are shut down. It shows karmic blocks, karmic patterns, mental loops as well that can be holding you back. It shows your true evolutionary path. There's messages from your higher self to yourself. It's just phenomenal. But what's so phenomenal is it's pre-language, so it comes to me coded, and usually frequency, so it needs to be translated. And then I do not need to be with a person to do that. I do need permission, and I'm very strict about having permission from the person themselves. So on my landing page for this, there's a few questions to answer, your date of birth, and of course, giving me permission. But they've come back for people that I've never met, don't know, don't even know what they look like. It's extremely accurate of things that I could not know and things that I might believe in and might not even believe in. So with one person, I remember she said, "Well, how would you know about an Egyptian past life?" I don't know. And I don't know if that's true or not. And it's in your field. It was in her field because several weeks before, apparently, she'd been to somebody who told her, "Oh, you had another lifetime here, there, and wherever." So I mirror that which is in your field. Now, I have to be very clear and very clean not to put my own take and perception on it, which is very easy if I've never met or don't know the person. And I remember with one friend thinking, "Oh," as I sort of was about to send her a report, "this doesn't sound or seem like the person I know." And then I thought, "Stop, Carol, those are your own perceptions. That's not relevant." So I'm very,
Mm-hmm.
very clear and clean with these multidimensional field scans. And as I said, what people get is a sort of 10 to 12 or even sometimes 15-page report, which acts like an activation. The reason it
Mm-hmm.
acts like an activation is, if you think about it, many of us are in a completely dark room, floundering around, wondering what we're bumping into, what we're tripping on all the time. And so the multidimensional field scan switches on the light for you to remember who you are, to see the blocks, the patterns, the things that are tripping you up. And of course, you have the option to switch off the light again if you choose. But then if you are bumping and tripping again, at least you know what you're bumping and tripping into. So it's kind of like once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's in your field. And because when they resonate with you or energetically, it's in your field, certain things start to happen fairly rapidly and fairly quickly. One of the other areas it covers is it shows you your current timeline, your current path. And for most people, it will show optimal timelines, other probabilities. And this isn't for not everyone, but most people have some optimal timelines. So once they've done the field scan, I also have a other technology. And when I say technology, I don't mean it's a device or equipment. I'm the technology. But I'm able to get a person's baseline signature frequency of, this is where you are now. This is the playground you're playing in. And they'll say to me, "But Carol, I want to be on that optimal timeline. That's the one I want." So I get the baseline signature frequency of that optimal timeline. And of course, there's a gap. Now, I can't slap people straight there because if you push people into different frequencies, it's like having a plant medicine experience. You're all over the shop. Yes, you see, hear different realities, but you can't hold it in real life. So we need to gradually entrain you there. And what I found is, even if we get you halfway there, if you think of this optimal timeline, wants to greet you. So if you personify it and think it's a friend, like creativity, you're coming this way, it wants to rush to meet you as well. So you kind of get to a tipping point. But this is where I've also developed not just the 4-week container, but an audio series called Entrainment, which is specific frequencies to accelerate you getting here. It also has subliminals and particular sounds. I thought it was going to be 1 20-minute audio, which you use with headphones. But creativity met me again, and it's 4. So the first 2 are developed, which the first one is coherence, the second one is resonance, the third one will be alignment, and then the fourth is embodiment. But they're designed within 20 minutes to utilize them like, I don't want to say in meditation, but I guess they are, because they do put you into altered states, but to shift you really, really quickly. And I know with one of my test subjects, she'd had a multidimensional field scan, and I sent her the first one, coherence, to test, and it's out with a few people, and she's had a challenging life. I won't say more than that because of
No, it's not necessary.
confidentiality, but her desire to shift things not just for herself but for people around her, and particularly her children. And her feedback to me is, Carol, this is the happiest I've ever been in my whole life. It's like she can see the doors are opening. And another person I'd sent it out to, where she had 2 interviews in 1 week, where it had been a kind of like bit of a famine, 2 interviews in 1 week with the same company. So she's already had the first interview, second interview. And I mean, she's just waiting really for the offer now. And so it kind of like just opens things up and accelerates the process. And to me, I've always been a little impatient. So when I get the optimal timeline and the baseline signature frequency and your baseline and how long it's going to take, there's one other caveat here. When you get and entrain into that frequency, it's not like everything changes immediately, because we live in a time-space reality where there's a time lag and a time drag between entraining to a frequency and things shifting in your playground, in the physical reality. For some people, that's 4
So,
to 6 weeks. Some people, it's months. Again, my question is, how can I shorten that time lag and time drag? And that's where the reason that I developed entrainment, to immerse people into those frequencies more rapidly and more easily.
so that's
So,
actually what we call a quantum jump.
yes, but done instead of where, if you think of some plant medicine, literally catapults you out of your
Mm.
form, and it can shatter the lower energy fields quite deeply. And then people don't integrate afterwards. This is quantum jumping, but incrementally, so that you can embody each phase so that it's not going to knock you out. And I know I've
Mm.
spent kind of like a little time talking about the multidimensional field scans, and I hope you understand and catch my excitement, because they are thrilling. And I know you experienced one and were also kind of like, and I was honored actually that you would ask me, because I know your abilities, Leonie, and I know what level you're operating at. So it was a real privilege to
Mm.
do a multidimensional field scan and mirror your field. It really was a privilege.
Thank you. And maybe it's good to mention for the listeners that although Carol receives in codes, the report you get is quite readable. It's just plain English.
Yes, because again, when I look back at it, if there's anything that's high level language, and I think I wouldn't know what that is, I stand in your shoes and I get a more grounded explanation. And many people choose the option where they have a follow up session with me if they want more
Mhm.
clarity. But the follow up session is always interesting because I open the field to do the scan. I close the field afterwards and I carry nothing with me and I leave nothing with me. To me, this is, as you know, Leonie, energetic hygiene. I don't
Mhm.
want somebody else's field in me, and I don't want my field in theirs. So there's a very clear break. So when people have the follow up or they want to move into maybe a health and vitality scan, then I reopen the field or I have to be reminded. I don't remember anything. I close it all.
And after you did mine, I remember you used a word that fascinated me enormously because I remember that I was asking you like, what do you see? What do you hear? Because back then I was still in the field of the senses and go beyond our senses, like the ones that see beyond, the ones that hear beyond. And you said, ah, yes, but what I see are grids.
Yes. Even that is very loose. I usually get a particular frequency, which is when I know I'm in what I call the 0 point consciousness field. And I've usually
Mm.
written out everything I want to check because you can imagine in the multidimensional fields, there's a lot. So that's the reason I target it down to 15, 16 areas. And then from the questionnaire, if people want a specific focus on relationships or life purpose or something else, then I spend a little bit more extra time there. But it's mainly impressions and grids and frequency I get that's pre-language. So that's why it's sort of clean, I guess.
Mm. And really, for the listeners, this report hits it. You blew my mind with that, Carol. Receiving that report opened up so much inside of me. It gave me a clarity where I did not expect to find clarity. It was amazing. And you, you just mentioned something, um, and actually, it was a concept where I wanted to bring you today, and this is the 0 point consciousness field. And I would like you to elaborate a little bit on this. What is a 0 point consciousness field? Because it is very similar to the work I do.
So,
I always speak of the dot.
yes, look, it's a term I use for describing the state that I go into very quickly, and I seem to be able to go into it very quickly. Whether it is what other people would describe as 0 point consciousness, I don't know. That's the term I use. But over the years, having been somebody who's been very in my head, needing to understand what does this mean? What does this mean? What does it mean? Analytical, busy mind syndrome. And I always used to wonder, well, has nobody else got anything going on up there? Being very busy and always more into doing. I think it's
Mm.
probably in recent years, and particularly after my experience in the dark room. I spent 10 days, 10 nights in complete darkness. And if I'd done that maybe 10 years ago, I would have been maybe bored out of my brain and really tied myself in knots. But the time went quite rapidly. When I talk about time, but you have no concept of time, you don't know what time it is. Um, that it brings you into a certain stillness, a certain silence, a certain solitude. And I've come to realize that, when we talk about the multidimensional fields, because people are busy in their head, busy in their body, busy physically with action, with doing, because again, that is what society has conditioned us with, right down to the noise, the sounds, that whether you go to a shopping mall, into a shop, to a restaurant, you're just bombarded with noise, and every kid is given an iPad to sit and watch cartoons with noise. It's just noise, noise, noise. But they're all distractions to stop you being in that 0 point field, that stillness. Imagine being so still, and we are electromagnetic beings, that creativity, that innovation, those ideas find you. They cannot find you with busy mind syndrome, with moving here, with doing that, with all the noise. So when you can come into that stillness, that silence, that solitude status, and even when I talk about solitude, I know so many people who cannot be alone and they really dislike being alone. And I'm like, oh gosh, love it. um, that when you can be in that place, you become the magnet, the electromagnetic field, the ideas, everything finds you. And this is counterintuitive to everything we have been told and taught, that you need to work harder, do more, be more. And, when things in our life are not working, or when things are not flowing, we think we have to do more, rather than actually, you need to rest. This is a time to rest your nervous system, because it's constantly on the alert with this ping, that ring, that call, and to be in that state of stillness. So when I talk about 0 point consciousness, it can mean different things to different people. But for me, it's going into a particular state of complete stillness where everything is there.
It is. It is. Also, to me, it is this space of complete stillness. It's also it's also like the dot that you put onto a paper, but you don't start writing yet. You just hold your pen on the dot and you keep still. And only when you really feel coming from the body, from inside, and not through the mind or impulses from the outside, when you feel from the inside that something inside you wants to start moving, then you start moving your pen.
And isn't that like automatic writing? You set yourself a time, you write, and with no judgment. And that's when the gifts start flowing. And once you realize that's your internet password to this huge invisible internet, this sea of consciousness that we're swimming in all the time, then this is when your life opens up in ways that you could never imagine. I could never imagine where I am now, even if I go back a year ago. I've had long gaps between writing books, and I mean, like 8 to 10 years. And now I published 2 in 1 year, plus the multidimensional field scans, the entrainment audio, the immersion labs. I mean, it just goes on. It's a whole wave, and it's like, I'm loving it.
But thank you, Carol, for reminding us again how important silence is. And in my experience, I also did a dark room, not for 10 days, only 2.
That's still something. That's still something, Lisa.
That already, yes, already that had a major impact on me. And when I stepped out, the first thing that came over me was like this experience of clarity, even in seeing. It was like I had different eyes. I could see on the other side of the lawn an ant walking over like the what's it called, the where you put the laundry.
Yeah, the washing line.
The washing line.
Wow.
And I was like, yes, and I was amazed because it brought me this laser focused clarity. And not only this, it brought me the experience of it, knowing that I, as a human being, am capable of so much more than I thought I was.
Yes, which again links back to opening the door to new possibilities. We are so much more than we think we are, and it's actually our thoughts and our beliefs that limit
Yeah.
us. So it's time to start questioning what we've been taught and told, and the beliefs that we have. Are they ours, or are they from the stories we've been told from our ancestors, from the karmic blocks? And again, that's where the field scans can sort of highlight the karmic blocks, the ancestral patterns, even the mental loops that may be holding you back. And as I said, once you see them, then you can remove them. They don't need to be there anymore.
And that's the first step, seeing them, confronting it,
Yes.
and not running away from it anymore. And thank you also for the poetry. One stuck. This is the sentence: everything finds you. And I love this expression, the busy mind syndrome. I know that in the next few days, I will remind myself of this. Okay, are you clinging to your busy mind syndrome, or are you willing to, to go beyond that? Thank you for that. Could I ask you a personal question?
You could. I don't know whether I'll answer.
No, that's okay. In your own path, your own journey, you also went through several breakthroughs. And which one surprised you the most?
What, in terms of an evolution of shifts? Um, again,
And being surprised, like I just told about my surprise, like, oh, am I able to see with this focused and clarity?
again, I wouldn't assign one pivotal moment, because what was kind of a breakthrough 10 years ago and what constitutes a breakthrough now are completely different, because I'm not the person I was before. And that also links to the fact that I don't tend to go and focus on people past, present, future. I think it's the wrong way round. I think it's future, and then being the person in the present that you want to be in the future, and creating the backstory, the past, your story, that's going to support you becoming and playing in this playground. So, to me, at the moment, the biggest breakthrough is with the multidimensional field scans, because it's something that I have wanted to create, um, because I was always chasing to be clairvoyant, clairaudient, and those gifts didn't open up for me in the way that I had expected, and this has. To me, this has been the biggest leap. In the past, if I go back, were there other leaps? Absolutely, because I've always been one of those people to push boundaries, whether it was putting myself through firewalking training. I even learnt to uh, eat fire, when you sort of put the fire down your throat and breathe fire. Um, whether it's jumping out of a plane, whether it's I've always been one of those people to also send myself on different personal development programs to travel the world, maybe to Ecuador and remote spaces and places, Ethiopia, Eritrea. Um, so that's my nature. I'm interested to push boundaries because of that one question that's driven me. If the masters, the gurus, the superhumans can do it, why can't I? And to evolve to that. So there have been many, many breakthroughs. And I look back and I'm proud that I had the courage to sort of kick my own backside to be more. And I've always liked to be a little bit of a pioneer and trailblazer. And living in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, I've had the opportunity to do that in certain areas. Like I was known as the NLP expert in this region, neuro-linguistic programming. There wasn't really anybody else here delivering those programs, and I did deliver them for about 18 years. Same with firewalking.
Oh, wow.
I've been running firewalks for about 18 years. But you grow, you learn, you evolve. That's the next breakthrough. And it doesn't
Mm.
always have to be a complete meltdown. Often we say it's chaos or crisis that creates evolution, but it doesn't have to be a complete meltdown. It's if you don't listen to your intuition, then your body and life shouts louder and louder. Leonie, I don't know whether you've seen this in certain people I know where, and again, I'm thinking of a particular client where, because this is what she's done for 10 years, she's hanging on and hanging on, and it's falling apart, and it's telling her to let go. And of course, she's scared. Who wouldn't be? So you keep getting those pushes and nudges. If you listen to them, it doesn't have to be a sort of painful crash. It can be a beautiful evolution.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
where our role is, and I know it's part of the work that you do, to help people have the confidence, the courage, and maybe the little carrot dangling there that says there's something better that allows them to let go.
Mm. Thank you. Beautiful. 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 And I'm going into our last few minutes of this beautiful episode. And I would like to end with something that the listeners can take home with them, like a quote or a question. Let me think. Um, because the question you ask yourself is a very powerful question, because it's the question that brought you exactly here, also today, here in this online studio. And how could we as listeners go back to our central question to ourselves? How could we start remembering that? Because I can imagine that a lot of people don't even know that question anymore.
So it is finding a question that does drive you. My question is, if they can do it, why can't I? What is it that prevents me being able to do this, that, and the other? But for other people, it could be, imagine, as I said, that we live in a reality where we think this is it. But imagine there are other probable and possible versions of yourself. Like I talked about, the multidimensional field scans show optimal timelines. Imagine being able to communicate with that optimal timeline and say, what is it you want me to know right now? So that I can meet you and greet you. And that starts to open the door.
Wow.
And one of my favorite quotes, Leonie, that has also driven me is, the path to mastery means the letting go of everything in your life that represents mediocrity. So this is the embodiment, starting to remember your brilliance, your uniqueness. And as I said before, the masters, the gurus, the so-called superhumans showed us what's possible. It's now time for us to remember. So it's remembering who you are.
Thank you. I think this is a very, very, very powerful message to take with us in the coming days, weeks, months, and in our shift that started during this episode. Thank you for your words.
My pleasure. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the invitation to share.
Thank you so much for listening. If this touched something in you, let it travel. Share the episode so the field can grow. I'd love to hear what moved in you, and you're welcome to reach out with any questions or reflections. I always enjoy connecting. And remember, this is only the first layer. If you feel it's time for a real shift in your life, you're welcome to go deeper with me through mentorship, training, or retreat. All information and free downloads are waiting for you via the link in the description.